This video looks at how to complete task 4 in the personal tax unit. This is one of the human mart questions. It's the tax computation question. I think the difficulty here is not necessarily doing the work, it's figuring out how to present it on the screen. So let me show you how I would approach this. Right, so this is quite a juicy tax computation that they've given us here, in fact, 14 marks. Mrs. O has the following income. So always a good idea to sort of read through everything first. So income from employment, profits from property, building society interest, dividends. So things going through my mind at the moment, savings allowance, dividend allowance. Looks like they're quite a high earner. So I'm sort of thinking I'm going to have to do something with my personal allowance for being over 100,000. Mrs. O has losses from property brought forward. Right. Well, I know that property losses brought forward can be offset against the current year's profits from property. So I would be subtracting that 14,320. So that'll bring it down a bit. During 21-22, Mrs. O paid 6% of her income from employment into an occupational pension scheme. So a contribution to an occupational pension scheme gets subtracted from income from employment as an allowable expense. So it's being paid out of the person's own money. So the tax relief comes from it sort of being subtracted, and therefore we pay less tax on our employment income. So I would need to work out what 6% of 85,100 is and subtract it. Her employer paid 10% of her income into the same scheme. So an employer making a payment to the pension scheme is simply an exempt benefit, so I can just ignore that. Mrs. O also paid 150 per month into a private pension scheme. Right, so £150 per month, that's out of the net pay. So this is the one where the tax relief comes from raising the bands. I also have alarm bells ringing with a private pension scheme that's going to affect my calculation of the personal allowance. So lots to think about here. Very good question. It's got a lot going on. And she's paid some PAYE as well. So we can pull that up in the reference section if we wish, so that we've got it side by side. So you've got task 4 at the bottom there. So you might find it easier to have that to refer to, or you might not, but it's an option. Okay, I'm going to close it for now. So we've been asked to calculate the net income tax liability for 21-22. Entering your answer and workings in the blank table below. All workings must be shown. Enter your answer in whole pounds only, and you've been given more space than you need. But there's no, like, you can't make it bigger. That's deemed sufficient space to do the whole thing. And we've got 4 columns. We've got 4 columns which don't grow, so you can type and type and type like that, but then when you enter it, you can only see a certain amount. If I click back on that and backspace, that's going to be my deleting. So how would I approach this? Well, you might be tempted to sort of do as we've learned and have non-savings income, savings income, dividend income, and go from there without a total column. But I think that might be a little bit prohibitive. So I'm going to show you what I recommend doing. So what I would do is, on a rough piece of paper, I would jot down, I'll do it on here for now, but this would be on my rough piece of paper. So I've got NSI, SIDI, and I would have my employment income, and I would be calculating what my employment income is. So 85,100, take away that 6% from the occupational pension scheme. Actually, I'm going to go straight to showing you how to do it on the screen. I think it's going to be easier. Right, so we're going to go employment income, and then I would use the next box to show the working. So the 85,100 minus 6% of 85,100. So you can sort of show the examiner, you know, what you're doing. You could even sort of say what that comes to. So that comes to 5,106. You're trying to show as much working as you possibly can. So that employment income figure then comes to 7,994. We've then got our property income. So remember we said that we've got those losses brought forward. So again, let's show a working. So we've got 32,600 minus 14320. So 32,600 minus 14320. And then we can just put what that is, which is 18280. Right, we've then got our building society interest. And I could quickly find that by clicking on that reference material, is 3540. And we've got our dividend income. So it's really up to you whether you prefer to click on that and see it, or you prefer to just scroll up, 10,600. Right, then we come to thinking about our personal allowance. So I'm going to put in a subtotal there of our net income. So all of that adds up to 112,414. So thinking about our personal allowance, we know that we have to do half the excess subtracted from the annual personal allowance amount, but we've also got to remember about that personal pension contribution. So I'd probably be showing some kind of working the best I can in here. So I would start by working out my adjusted net income. So no, actually before that, I think I will work out what my gross personal pension contributions are. Now, I guess it doesn't matter too much. I've gone a little bit wide on that. How am I going to work out my gross personal pension contributions? Well, I've got 150 times 12 is the net. So 150 times 12. And then you could either divide that by 0.8, or you could say to yourself, well, that represents 80% and I want 100. So that comes to a total figure of 2,250. So then we can work out our adjusted net income. Adjusted net income is the net income, so the 112,414 that we just calculated above, minus that 2250, which gives us adjusted net income of 110,164. Right, then we want to do half the excess over 100,000. So that's going to be half of, so the excess over is 10,164. So half of 10,164 is 5,082. and then we work out the personal allowance. So reduced personal allowance is going to be, and again, if you're like me, you've got brain like a sieve, you can't remember the figure. You can go in here, look at allowances, personal allowance, 12,570. So 12,570 minus that 5,082 gives us a reduced personal allowance of 7,488 to be subtracted from the net income to give us our taxable income figure of, so I'm doing 112414 minus 7,488, which is 104,926. Right, so now I'm ready to start taxing. So I'm going to start with my non-savings income, where I know that the first, in fact, I'm going to use these two columns. Right, so my first tax band is, of course, 37,700 here. But of course, I'm going to be raising that band, but I'm going to show the examiner the separate components. So the first 37,700 is going to be at 20%. Now, actually, before I do that, I'm just going to do yet another calculation to show my non-savings income figure. And my non-savings income, remember, is going to be my employment income plus my property income minus my personal allowance, because the personal allowance is always deducted from non-savings income first. So that comes to, I've written that down. That comes to 90786. So just worked out what my non-savings income figure is. So I know that I'm definitely going to do the first 37,700 at 20%. I haven't written down what that is in my workings, but just bear with me. We then know that we have raised the band by this we need to raise the band by this 2250 that we calculated up here. So I'm going to do 2250 also at 20%. The one I prepared earlier, I did that as a combined figure. I would write those in as two separate figures, but I don't have a calculator to hand. So I'm just going to put in like what they come to combined for the purposes of this example. Right, I'm still on non-savings income because I've got to go up to 90,786. So the rest of it, which is going to be my 90786 minus 37,700 minus 2250, which is a further 50,836. Get rid of that back. So I'll get rid of that bracket and see if it'll. But I can no equals. Get rid of some of these spaces. I'm just trying to get it so that I can see the whole thing in the working. This is why it's a little bit difficult to get it in in the boxes. Right, so I'm showing that, and then I'm just going to put the times 40% in there so the examiner can see it. So 50,836 at 40% gives me 20334. Right, then I'm on to savings income. So if we go back up, my savings income, my building society interest, right, 3540. This is a higher rate taxpayer. So the first 500 is going to be at 0%. Savings allowance, and I might even put in there higher rate taxpayer so that they know why I've done 500. So that would be 0. And then the rest of my savings income, so altogether I've got 3540. So I'm going to do 3540 minus 500, which is 3040. I'm in the 40% bracket, so 3040 at 40% is 1216. And then we've got dividend income. So everyone gets the first 2,000 at 0%, which is the dividend allowance. So that will be 0. And then the rest of the dividends, so how much dividend do we have altogether? We've got 10,600. So if we do 10,600, subtract the 2,000, that leaves me with 8,600, which is at the higher rate for dividends, which is 32.5%. So that comes to 2795. Right, so then the next row is going to be my tax liability, which will be the sum of all of these figures here, which comes to 32,335. And then in this question, he's already paid, so it's she's already paid 22,500 as PAYE. So PAYE deducted 22,500, leaving us with tax payable of 9,835. Okay, so that's what my answer would look like. Hopefully gaining all the marks, making it clear to the examiner what I've done.